What you just witnessed were the final moments before four teenagers learned their fate. They thought they'd get away with murder. They were dead wrong. Today, we're looking at four cases that will leave you absolutely stunned.
We then moved her off of the trail, where I then struck her, and she died as a result.
We discussed a general plan. I'll stand up here, look out, wait for Miss Grader to show up. Here she comes, and she walked by and hit her in the back of the head, and then I said, "Boy, shit, make sure she's dead." So we hit her a couple more times. After that, there wasn't really a plan beyond that.
Like hide the body, bury the body, save the body.
At that time, we were going to hide the body. I guess in our arrogance, we kind of assumed that nobody would ever find her.
Our first case takes us to Fairfield, Iowa, where two 16-year-old boys decided to commit one of the most senseless murders imaginable, all because of a bad grade. Jeremy Goodale and Willard Miller were just regular high school students at Fairfield High School. But on November 2nd, 2021, they did something absolutely unforgivable. Their Spanish teacher, 66-year-old Nohema Graber, was a beloved educator who'd been teaching for years. She had a routine. Every day after school, she'd go for a walk at Chautauqua Park. But Jeremy Goodale and Willard Miller knew this routine, and they used it to plan her murder. The brutality of this crime is almost impossible to comprehend. They ambushed a woman who had dedicated her life to educating young people. They beat her to death with a baseball bat and hid her body in the woods. But here's where their plan fell apart. They bragged about it on Snapchat. Both boys were quickly arrested. Miller was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 35 years. But today we're focusing on Jeremy Goodale's sentencing hearing, because what happened in that courtroom reveals something deeply disturbing about this case. Sounds remorseful, right? But the most powerful moment came when Jeremy's father, Dean Goodale, took the stand. What he revealed painted a picture of a deeply troubled young man, but also raised questions about accountability. Dean also testified about his attempts to get Jeremy mental health treatment, and those attempts failed, repeatedly. But here's the uncomfortable truth we need to address. Does any of this excuse what Jeremy Goodale did? Does a difficult childhood, mental health struggles, or failed interventions justify beating a teacher to death with a baseball bat? The judge didn't think so. Jeremy Goodale will be in his 40s before he even has a chance at freedom. And Willard Miller? He'll be 51. But Jeremy Goodale isn't the only teenager who thought they could get away with murder. Let's move to Ohio, where another case unfolded that's equally shocking. July 31st, 2022. Strongsville, Ohio. Mackenzie Shirilla, just 17 years old, is behind the wheel of her car. In the passenger seat is her boyfriend, 18-year-old Dominic Russo. In the back seat is his friend, 19-year-old Davion Flanagan. What happens next is captured on surveillance camera, and it's absolutely terrifying.
Mackenzie decided death was the ultimate goal that day. This was not reckless driving. This was murder.
Threatened his property. She threatened to break into his house.
Correct.
You see her driving very calmly and making the right turn, and then all evidence indicates she immediately put the pedal to the metal and drove straight into a building at 100 miles per hour. I think those really demonstrated to us that this was no accident.
One finds the defendant, Mackenzie Shirilla, guilty of murder to wit Dominic Russo.
At first, it might seem like a tragic accident. A teenage driver loses control, and lives are lost. But prosecutors saw something very different on that surveillance footage. This wasn't an accident. This was intentional. But why would a 17-year-old girl do something so horrific? Mackenzie and Dominic had a toxic, volatile relationship. She'd made threats against him and his property. And prosecutors believe that on that night, she decided that if she couldn't have him, nobody could. Davion Flanagan was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Collateral damage in her twisted plan. And here's what makes this case even more disturbing. Mackenzie's behavior after the crash. While still in the hospital recovering from the crash that killed two people, Mackenzie was emailing modeling agencies. She went to concerts in a wheelchair. She celebrated Halloween with friends. The trial was emotional and intense. The judge heard testimony, reviewed the surveillance footage, and made a decision. And then came the sentence. 15 years to life on each count, served concurrently. Mackenzie Shirilla will be at least 32 years old before she's even eligible for parole. And given the nature of her crime and her shocking lack of remorse, she may spend the rest of her life behind bars. Now let's head to Texas, where our third case takes an even more bizarre turn.
That's so bad.
Somebody hurt? Who's hurt? Two people.
Just amplified the longer I was on it.
December 23rd, 2023. Friendswood, Texas. It's 2 days before Christmas, and 3 teenage friends are hanging out at Connor Hilton's house. What should have been an ordinary evening among friends turned into a nightmare that would leave one dead and another fighting for his life. The victims were 18-year-old Ethan Riley and Benjamin Blake, and the person who shot them? Their friend, Connor Hilton. The 911 call came from inside the house, from a bathroom where another friend was hiding. He'd heard 2 gunshots and was terrified. When police arrived, they found Connor outside, visibly distraught. But what he told them was chilling. Inside the house, police found exactly what the 911 caller had described. Ethan Riley was on the floor with a gunshot wound to the head, lying in a pool of blood. Benjamin Blake was in the back of the house, also shot in the head. Connor's confession was detailed and disturbing. He said he stood up, raised his gun, and shot Ethan Riley first in the left side of the head. Then he turned and shot Benjamin Blake, who had raised his hands defensively, trying to protect himself. Ethan Riley died on Christmas Eve. Benjamin Blake somehow survived but suffered a traumatic brain injury that required weeks in the ICU and months of rehabilitation. The judge sentenced Connor Hilton to 50 years for murder and 20 years for aggravated assault, to be served concurrently. Our last case is Uriah Urick.
So I'm going to ask you to please stand. So, Mr. Urick, you came before this court and a jury and entered a plea of not guilty to the offense of capital murder. The evidence was presented to the jury. A jury was charged, and after deliberating, the jury returned a verdict finding you guilty of the offense of capital murder. Is there any legal reason why sentence should not now be pronounced against you? Any legal reason? All right. Having no legal reason, I see you shaking your head no, and that's correct. There's no legal reason, correct?
Correct.
All right. It is an order of this court that you, Mr. Urick, who have been adjudged guilty of the offense of capital murder, and whose punishment is assessed at life in prison, that you be delivered to the sheriff of the Galveston County Jail, who will then place you with the director of the Texas Department of Criminal Justice Institution Division, where you'll be confined for the rest of your life in accordance with the laws governing the Department of Criminal Justice Institution. So you are now remanded to the custody of the Galveston County Sheriff, who will remand you to the custody of Texas Department of Criminal Justice. And any time you have will also be given to you. It appears that you have 272 days credit. That credit will be given. There's also going to be an entry of a finding of a deadly weapon, namely a firearm. Because you are indigent, I will waive your court costs. And because this is a plea bargain, because this is not a plea bargain, you do have the right of appeal. And I will take notice of the fact that you have indeed filed a notice of appeal, and the court will appoint an appellate attorney to help you.
A Texas teenager convicted of capital murder for killing his girlfriend's grandmother, Tammy King. The details of this crime are gruesome and disturbing. Uriah murdered Tammy King in cold blood, and when he was caught, he showed no remorse whatsoever. The trial was intense, but the jury didn't take long to reach their verdict. Guilty of capital murder, the most serious charge possible. The judge asked if there was any legal reason why the sentence shouldn't be pronounced. Uriah shook his head. There was nothing left to say. No defense. No excuses. Uriah Urick will spend every single day for the rest of his life behind bars. The judge noted that Uriah had 272 days of credit for time served. But what does that matter when you're facing life without parole? It's a drop in an ocean of time that stretches out endlessly before him. And just like that, it was over. and Uriah Urick was escorted out of the courtroom for the last time as a free person. What do you think about these sentences? Were they fair? Should these teenagers have been tried as adults? Let me know in the comments below. And if you found this video informative, please hit that like button and subscribe for more true crime content.